The power in the shadows, the black budget. This is the true history of the world's largest intelligence agency, the CIA. It is the story of an America everyone knows, but in America no one is allowed to know. This is the world's most secretive organization. It runs on a black budget, laundering power through offshore cash and shell companies, from overthrowing foreign leaders in the Cold War to deploying algorithms and drones in the War on Terror. The CIA is America's ultimate lever of power. It is the year 1945. The Second World War is ending in fire and rubble. Europe lies in ruins. The Pacific burns under the shadow of the atomic bomb, and the balance of power is about to shift radically. The Red Army of the Soviet Union occupies half the continent. Stalin's iron grip tightens around capitals from Warsaw to Bucharest. For America, this is dire news. Washington knows almost nothing about what the Soviets are planning next. At the time, the US had the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, which had fought in the shadows during the war, sabotaging Nazi supply chains. But frankly, they were amateurs. Moscow's intelligence network ran circles around them. Even Britain's MI6 guarded secrets from Washington. America was winning the war on raw industrial might, not superior intelligence. When President Harry Truman inherits the presidency in April 1945, he initially shuts down the OSS. But soon he realizes the country needs a better, bigger, more sophisticated intelligence service. And so, in the corridors of Washington, a new resolve takes shape. The president is about to create an organization unlike anything in American history, one that will wage a silent war across the globe. In a sealed, windowless room inside the newly formed National Security Council, a small group of men gather. Behind closed doors, they are about to create something America has never had before, a permanent peacetime spy agency. They call it the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. Their mandate was clear: to gather intelligence, conduct covert operations, and, if necessary, interfere in the affairs of other nations to protect US interests. The National Security Act, which created the CIA in 1947, was hurried and contentious. It gave the agency a broad and deliberately vague mandate. The vision was a network of agents and informants across the globe, covert action teams capable of toppling governments, and propaganda arms to shape public opinion abroad. An intelligence service that answers directly to the president, not to Congress or the public. But power like this needs money, vast amounts of it, and asking openly would invite questions the founders couldn't answer. Soon, an opportunity would present itself, allowing the CIA virtually unlimited funds. Post-World War II Europe is in ruins. Millions are homeless, hungry, and desperate. Without help, chaos and communism look like a viable option. The US would not let that happen. President Truman responds with the Truman Doctrine. The US will support free nations resisting subjugation. Secretary of State George Marshall follows with a bold proposal: the Marshall Plan. Over 4 years, the United States pours more than $13 billion into Europe, over $150 billion today. Officially, the money funds food shipments, machinery, fuel, and infrastructure. But inside the fine print was a secret arrangement. Approximately 5% of Marshall Plan funds, about $685 million, was diverted to the CIA. This cash would be used to influence elections, bribe politicians, fund friendly labor unions, and run propaganda campaigns across Europe. The CIA now had its war chest. But in the late 1940s, the Soviet KGB was the gold standard of espionage. The CIA was a rookie. During one of its earliest operations, a team of Ukrainian agents parachuted into Soviet-held territory. The drop was doomed before the plane even left the runway. One of the mission's key handlers was secretly a Soviet informant, feeding every detail straight to the KGB. The failures were so widespread and consistent that they could not be dismissed as simple bad luck. The CIA was, according to one internal report, fatally penetrated. CIA Director Walter Bedell Smith feared the agency would be written off as an amateur sideshow. The CIA needed a headline victory, something that shouted competence to the White House and terror to its enemies. That opportunity arrived in 1953. Iran stood at the center of the Cold War map. Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh had just nationalized the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, stripping Britain of its lucrative control. London turned to Washington, hoping the CIA would take him out. Walter Bedell Smith approved the plan. It was codenamed Operation Ajax. At its center was CIA officer Kermit Roosevelt Jr. Roosevelt slipped into Tehran with over $1 million in CIA funds. The plan was as old as politics. Bribe the right people, spread the right lies, and let the streets do the rest. Parliamentarians were bought. Newspaper editors were paid to print stories branding Mossadegh a corrupt dictator. After initial setbacks, military officers loyal to the Shah were rallied. Tanks appeared in the streets. Mossadegh was captured within hours. The oil fields fell back under Western influence. The Iran coup was hailed as a masterpiece in Langley. Clean, decisive, and swift. But toppling a democratically elected leader for oil set a dangerous precedent, one that would one day come back and haunt America. The 1950s turned into a blur of CIA coups and clandestine battles. Allen Dulles and Richard Bissell agreed. The agency's future lay in the skies and in technology no one else could match. The CIA gave up pretending to beat the KGB at their own game and leaned into what America was good at, building great technologies. The next big breakthrough would not come from a suitcase of cash. It would come from a machine. It was called the U-2. The Soviets were building nuclear sites, and Washington needed eyes on them immediately. Richard Bissell became project chief. The result was the U-2, a jet that could fly at 70,000 feet, higher than any Soviet fighter or missile could reach. Cameras mounted in its belly could photograph objects 2 feet wide from 13 miles up. This was not just an airplane, it was a spy satellite with a pilot. Since 1954, the CIA was already pulling the strings in Vietnam. The U-2 flew over, mapping the twisting lifeline of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Most of these covert actions had to do with money, and the CIA's sources were not always clean. In Laos, Hmong fighters protected opium fields in exchange for weapons and pay. And in Cambodia, heroin trafficking quietly fueled operations the State Department would never acknowledge. In April 1961, the CIA rolled the dice on one of its boldest operations. The Bay of Pigs, Cuban exiles, trained and armed by the agency, landed on the beaches to overthrow Fidel Castro. The plan collapsed within days. Air cover was denied, and Castro's forces swept the beaches clean. For President Kennedy, it was a humiliating failure. Agitated, Kennedy was quoted saying, "How could I have been so stupid to rely upon these advisors?" America's image of invincibility was tarnished. He vowed he would never again be overawed by advice from the CIA. Despite the fiasco, Washington wasn't backing down. The mission remained the same: stop communism from spreading, no matter the cost. The focus shifted south to Chile. In the early 1970s, Salvador Allende was elected president, the first Marxist to come to power through democratic means in the Western Hemisphere. For the White House, it was a democratic Cuba nightmare scenario. The CIA was tasked with making sure Allende's government wouldn't survive. They poured millions into opposition media, funded strikes, and put massive pressure on the economy. On September 11, 1973, General Augusto Pinochet led Chile's armed forces in a coup. Pinochet seized power, ushering in years of military dictatorship marked by torture and repression. Meanwhile, the CIA crossed a forbidden line at home. It began targeting domestic opinion, funding student groups, and influencing journalists. And of course, Project MKUltra under Sidney Gottlieb. The CIA experimented on unwitting subjects with LSD, hypnosis, and psychological torture. The aim was mind control. The CIA dreamed of a drug that could get someone to commit unspeakable acts, only to wake up the next day with no memory. They were looking into creating what they called Manchurian candidates. The mid-1970s brought turbulence on every front. The CIA's mystique was stripped away by the Church and Pike committees. But inside Langley, secret bank accounts in Switzerland and the Caribbean kept covert funds flowing. Soon, those secret accounts would bankroll an operation that would explode into a monumental scandal. In the early 1980s, the CIA and key figures in the Reagan White House arranged to sell arms to Iran. The price was inflated. The profits from these secret arms sales moved quietly into Swiss bank accounts and offshore companies, then out again, this time to the Contras, a rebel army fighting to topple the leftist Sandinista government in Nicaragua. Arms sales weren't the only funding stream in Central America. Cocaine traffickers moved product north. The CIA's network looked the other way, or in some cases, worked directly with traffickers, so long as the profits flowed to Contra operations. When the story hit in 1986, it shook Washington to its core. What came next was a money scandal so huge, it made Iran-Contra look like pocket change. BCCI, Bank of Credit and Commerce International. BCCI sold itself as the Bank of the Third World, a refuge for drug traffickers, dictators, and arms dealers. Billions in dirty money flowed through its accounts. In 1991, authorities in 7 countries shut BCCI down. Investigations revealed it had laundered billions for criminals and intelligence agencies alike. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. The red flag over the Kremlin came down. For the CIA, its ruthless rival, the KGB, was gone. But with the Soviet Union's fall came an unexpected crisis. The CIA's very purpose was shaken. Without the Cold War, the big looming threat vanished. The loss of the Soviets tore out the CIA's heart. Without the KGB, what was the CIA for? Funding shrunk. Overseas stations closed. That calm would not last. Far from the headlines, a new enemy was organizing, fluid, networked, and invisible. Its weapons were terror. In the mid-1990s, Osama bin Laden built his army. His network, Al-Qaeda, grew in the shadows. Opportunities to kill or capture him slipped away. Then came the attacks, U.S. embassies, the USS Cole. Terrorism put intelligence back in the center of national security, but no one truly saw what was coming. The morning of September 11, 2001. Clear skies over New York turned to chaos as hijacked planes slammed into the Twin Towers. Nearly 3,000 dead in hours. The CIA's mission was now absolute: find the enemy and make them pay. In 2003, the CIA insisted Iraq held weapons of mass destruction. Satellite images, defectors' reports all seemed to point to hidden stockpiles, but it was wrong. The intelligence was flawed. The US invaded Iraq, Baghdad fell in weeks. But in the ruins, the truth became impossible to ignore. There were no WMDs, the war mutated. Iraq became a massive theater of operations for the CIA. Budgets exploded, and in the deserts of Iraq and the mountains of Afghanistan, a new weapon took shape, one that could hunt, watch, and kill without risking a single American life. The drone. The CIA's drone program was born in the shadows. The Predator drone, fitted with Hellfire missiles, became both scout and assassin. The MQ-9 Reaper took it further, bigger, faster, with longer range. A pilot could sit in Nevada while striking in Pakistan. This was revolutionary, precision strikes without risking agents. A war without borders. But for nearly a decade after 9/11, Osama bin Laden was the world's most wanted man. He slipped away in Tora Bora and vanished. Then, in 2010, a breakthrough happened. They tracked a suspect across Pakistan to a high-walled Abbottabad compound. CIA analysts were convinced it was bin Laden. On May 2, 2011, the operation began. Navy SEAL Team 6 moved room to room. On the third floor, they found bin Laden. 2 shots ended the hunt. For the CIA, the operation was the ultimate vindication. Years of patient surveillance and relentless pursuit had paid off, but killing bin Laden did not erase the threat. Terrorism became more decentralized, harder to track. The challenge now was to stop attacks before they happened. That meant new tools far beyond human sources and drones. The CIA finds a company that may just solve the problem for them, a startup that will change the course of America's history. And the man behind the startup is Alex Karp. Secrecy is the CIA's very reason for existence. But this much power, this many secrets, comes at a cost. That cost is being written into the black ledger of not just history, but the future. Perhaps the real question is, how black is this budget? And how secret can these operations truly remain? Thank you for exploring the shadowy history of the CIA with us here on the Financial History and Tech Drama channel. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please remember to subscribe and like this video so you do not miss future hidden histories of the worlds of finance, technology, and espionage. See you in the next deep dive.